to students. So, we have looked into dynamical systems on the real line and we have looked into dynamical systems in general. What we have observed is that in the real line chaos basically comes up because of the non-linearity of the system. So, what happens in case of linear systems? Can we really experience some chaos kind of properties for linear systems? So, to know the answer, we can move into one dimension higher. Of course, you can study linear system in any dimension, but we will be specifically restricting ourselves to study of linear systems in 2 dimensions. So, we are looking into linear systems in 2 dimensions and we can say that you think of L to be say from R square to R square a linear transformation. So, typically we can write L as L of x y. Since this is a linear transformation, this would be something of the form A x plus b y and C x plus d y. So, this basically can be written as the matrix A B C D, right, multiplied by the vector x y. So, for any vector v, any vector v in R square, we can say that L of v is some matrix A of v, where A is some 2 by 2 matrix, say A B C D. Now, we are interested in the dynamical system. So, supposing we are looking into this dynamical system R square and L, then we are interested in computing the orbits here. So, basically for the system R square L, we are interested in the orbits So, we have V, L V, L square V and so on. So, we are interested in this particular orbit, right, for each V in R square. But if we try to look into what is V, L V, because your L V can always be defined as A times V. So, basically this turns out to be the orbit, right, this turns out to be the set. And what is that set? So, we have V, A V, A square V and so on. So, we are only interested in computing this set. So, ideally in order to study linear systems in 2 dimensions or maybe in any dimension, whenever we want to study linear systems, we are basically interested in computing, right, the power of the matrices. And when we want to compute the power of matrices, everything, your entire problem of finding the orbit first of all reduces to finding the power of the matrix. So, what is important over here is to find out how do we compute a to the power n. So, let us look into this aspect. Now, this is something which is trivially done in a say advanced course on linear algebra, but since I know many of you will not have that background. So, we are going to do some basics today. So, that is what is the intention of this lecture. We will be looking into basics of how to compute a to the power n for various n, and we are restricting ourselves again to 2 cross 2 matrices, though in general the theory holds for any dimension. So, let us look into this concept, this aspect of computing a to the power n. So, we are interested in computing a to the power n. For that, right, we realize that supposing I have a matrix A. So, consider this matrix A. Now, right now I am not looking into the dimension because this general theory is true for any dimension. So, and of course, we are interested in square matrices. So, we are looking into a matrix A and the characteristic polynomial of this matrix A. So, the characteristic polynomial is basically, I can think of this as P A lambda, which is given as the determinant of A minus lambda times I, where again I you are looking into the same dimension as A, and this is a characteristic polynomial, and the zeros of this polynomial are called characteristic values or maybe the eigenvalues. Now, this is which something everybody knows, and we also know that associated to each eigenvalue lambda of A is a non-zero vector say u such that A times u is just lambda times u. In fact, many times we compute the eigenvalues, right, with respect to this term, because u is a vector for which this equation is satisfied. So, looking into any such combination, if you get a vector u such that A u equal to lambda times u, then you say that this happens to be lambda is your eigenvalue, and then such a u is called an eigenvector. So, u is an eigenvector corresponding to the eigenvalue lambda. So, u is your eigenvector corresponding to eigenvalue lambda, and this is basically your structure. What else can we say about matrices? So, we also have this concept of similar matrices. So, we say that the matrices A and B are said to be similar if there exists a non-singular matrix P such that your P inverse AP is B. So, two matrices are similar if there is a way of transforming one matrix to the other matrix via a non-singular matrix. And this is something which I think everybody knows, it is quite elementary, that this similarity of matrices is an equivalence relation. What do we mean by that? Well, we know that A is always similar to itself, and then we know that if A is similar to B, that implies B is similar to A. Can it be easily seen? A can be written as PA P inverse, and again this is again some extrapolation here. We know that if A is similar to B, B is similar to C, that would imply that A is similar to C. You are just substituting B, right, in that particular situation. So, we know that this is already, we know that this happens to be an equivalence relation. So, that means if we want to just look into some property of matrices, it is enough to consider the equivalence classes and just one element from each equivalence class. Then there is another aspect to this which perhaps we all know, that is that if A and B are 2 and B, they are two similar matrices, then they have the same eigenvalues. Of course, eigenvectors need not be the same, but they definitely have the same eigenvalues. And it is very simple to see this one, because if I have this P inverse AP to be equal to B, then I can write my A as P B P inverse. Now, suppose your A of V equal to lambda V, then what we know here is that A of V will be equal to P B P inverse of V, and this is going to be your lambda V. So, if we forget this first part, we just look into the second part, right, that would give us that P of B of P inverse V is same as lambda of P inverse V, right. So, basically you have a vector, a non-zero vector satisfying this equation P of u equal to lambda u, and hence lambda happens to be the eigenvalue. So, when we are trying to look into computing, because we are more interested in computing A to the power n, we want to look into study of similar matrices. We try to look into something more on similar matrices. Now, this is something which I am going to prove. This is a very elementary theorem because we are doing it for 2 by 2, but this is true for any general n dimensional matrix. So, basically any n cross n matrix, and you can see that in various books. But since this has not been covered for you at your level, I will be looking into this particular theorem. So, we will look into this theorem and we will basically be proving this theorem, because that will help you in trying to see how to work out with these ideas. So, let A be a 2 cross 2 matrix. Then A is similar to one of the following. Now, what are these ones? So, the first case here happens to be a matrix of the form lambda 1, it is a diagonal matrix, right, with diagonal entries lambda 1 and lambda 2. So, this could be one case. The second case could be a matrix of the form lambda 1 0 lambda, the second case, and the third case it could be a matrix of the form say alpha beta minus beta and alpha. This could be the third form. So, we want to say that any 2 cross 2 matrix is similar to one of these, and actually this is what is the theory of Jordan. So, these are basically called the Jordan forms. So, these are the Jordan forms. And as I said that this can be considered for any n cross n matrix. So, let us try to look into the proof of this theorem. So, we look into the proof of this theorem. We start with our matrix A. Now, since we know that all similar matrices will have the same eigenvalues, we are looking into the eigenvalues. Now, A is a 2 cross 2 matrix. So, if you look into its characteristic polynomial will have degree 2, and we know that very well that is polynomial of degree 2, right, can have at most 2 roots, and since we are working with a real polynomial now, right, it is possible that our 2 roots are complex roots, So, we are looking into the first case where we have two roots and both the roots are real, right. So, suppose that the eigenvalues now let me name this eigenvalues. So, this eigenvalues are lambda 1 and lambda 2. So, these are the two eigenvalues of A and these are both real. So, the first case is the characteristic polynomial, right, it has both real roots. So, I have real case. Now, when lambda 1 and lambda 2 there are two real roots, right, there are two possibilities, either they are equal or they are not equal, right. So, let us assume first of all that lambda 1 is not equal to lambda 2. So, we have this lambda 1 not equal to lambda 2, think of that part. Now, this is something which is very elementary and which everybody knows that if the eigenvalues are not equal, the corresponding eigenvectors will be linearly independent, right. So, in this case, so let me write this case, right. So, in this case, the corresponding eigenvectors. So, let me name the corresponding eigenvectors. The corresponding eigenvectors is V1 for lambda 1 and V2 for lambda 2 are linearly independent. So, we know that these are now linearly independent. What we try to do is we try to form a matrix out of these vectors. So, we take a column of linearly independent vectors and try to form a matrix, and we very well know that such a matrix will turn out to be non-singular, right. So, let P be the matrix we are looking into this particular matrix V1 V2. So, this is a matrix with columns as eigenvectors, and then we very well know that P is non-singular. Supposing now I am interested in looking into this case, what is P inverse A P, what is this going to be equal to? So, we know that this is all I am taking a multiplication of 2 cross 2 matrices. So, the resultant will also be a 2 cross 2 matrix. So, let me take this to be equal to, I am calling this to be J, and let this J be equal to say E F G H. Already our A we have taken up to be A B C D. So, does not matter, we can take this to be E F G H. So, supposing P inverse A P happens to be E F G H. So, what does that mean now? So, if I look into A times P, that happens to be equal to P times J. So, now let us look into P, my P happens to be V1 V2, right. So, I am looking into this part. So, what is my A V1? We take this multiplication A V1, right. I can take the similar multiplication here because my P is V1 V2 and we have already taken our J to be E F G H. So, in that case your A V1 it turns out to be equal to E times V1 plus G times V2. Now, A V1 we very well know V1 happens to be an eigenvector corresponding to the eigenvalue lambda 1. So, your A V1 will actually turn out to be equal to lambda times V1. So, we have lambda times V1, lambda 1 times V1 is equal to E times V1 plus G times V2. What do we know about our vectors V1 and V2? These are linearly independent. So, if I try to look into these equation, right, this equation will tell me that E should be equal to lambda 1 and G should be equal to 0. So, your E happens to be equal to lambda 1 and your G is basically equal to 0. So, we found out the values of E and G. We can similarly find out the values of F and H. So, all we need to look into is what is your A times V2 So, your A times V2 would turn out to be F times V1 plus H times V2. F times V1 plus H times V2, we already know that V2 again is an eigenvector corresponding to the eigenvalue lambda 2. So, A times V2 happens to be equal to lambda 2 V2. So, lambda 2 V2 is basically F times V1 plus H times V2. Now, again the same condition, linearly independency of V1 and V2, that gives us that F should be equal to 0 and your H should be equal to V2. So, what we get here is, we get that our J, which was a similar matrix, right, to A, happens to be equal to lambda 1, 0, 0 and lambda 2. So, if lambda 1 is not equal to lambda 2, we find that this matrix A, right, is basically similar to a matrix of the form 1. What happens if lambda 1 is equal to lambda 2? So, I am looking into lambda 1 equal to lambda 2. It is quite possible that we may have two eigenvalues to be the same, because we are looking into the multiplicity of lambda 1, the characteristic equation. But then it is also possible that in this particular case, right, we may have the eigenspace corresponding to this lambda, right, would have dimension 2. So, we can get two linearly independent vectors V1 and V2, right, corresponding to the same eigenvalue lambda. So, let the first case we look into is, let me write it here 1, the first case we will look into it is let lambda 1 is equal to lambda 2 and let that be equal to lambda, and let V1 and V2 be two non-empty linearly independent eigenvectors corresponding to this eigenvalue lambda. Now, we know that what is an eigenspace, because we have only one eigenvalue, right. This eigenvalue has an eigenspace, and the eigenspace here we are assuming to be equal to 2. It is only 2 because we are working with R square. So, it is only 2, right. So, this eigenspace is 2 and we have two linearly independent vectors lambda V1 and V2. So, again what we do is, this reduces to the previous case, right. The previous case we had V1 and V2. So, we can take P to be equal to V1 and V2, that is a non-singular matrix, and then what is your P inverse AP? So, that would be your matrix J, right, and this matrix J would now turn out to be equal to, you can use the same method here, right. It gives you the matrix 0 lambda 0 lambda. So, it is again a diagonal matrix. Now, with the diagonal entries 0 lambda, because here your lambda 1 turns out to be equal to lambda 2, which is same as lambda, right. So, this reduces to again the first case, the previous case. What happens when lambda 1 is equal to lambda, but the dimension of eigenspace is 1? What happens in that particular case? So, we look into the case, the second case here. So, we have let lambda 1 be same as lambda 2, be same as lambda, and let V1 be the only vector, right, with A times V1 equal to lambda times V1, and any other vector satisfying this equation. So, when I call this equation, basically I mean this equation. So, any other vector satisfying this equation is linearly dependent to V1. So, that means now I have an eigenspace with dimension 1. What happens in that particular case? So, when we try to look into that particular case, we solve this equation. So, in this case, what is the equation that we solve? So, we solve this equation that okay. So, we have this equation A times, so we consider this part, I am just looking into this part, we have this equation A times V1 is lambda times V1, which is same as saying that I am looking into A times A minus lambda I. So, this is again my matrix. When I apply this to V1, this basically turns out to be equal to 0. So, what I have here is that A times lambda I, right, in the direction of V1 is not giving me anything, right, it is equal to 0. So, we are now interested in looking into something else. So, we want to solve this equation. So, we solve this equation which I am saying that A times lambda I V2 is equal to V1 for some V2 belonging to R square. So, what we try to do here is one A minus lambda I, V1 was bringing A minus lambda I to 0. What we want to do is we want to take up V2 such that it brings A minus lambda I onto V1. So, we try with this particular matrix, we try with this particular solution V2. So, what do we have here is, so the equations we have here is A times V1 is lambda times V1 and A times V2 happens to be equal to lambda times V2 plus V1. We have basically this set of equations. Now, if we try to look into this particular V2, this V2 is not an eigenvalue, not an eigenvector for A, but there is something interesting to V2 is that it is linearly independent to V1, right. V2 and V1 are linearly independent. And then if you look into V2, right, what you get here is it is basically satisfying some kind of a generalized condition for eigenvector, right. So, it is not an eigenvector, but it is a generalized eigenvector for lambda. So, this V2 is a generalized eigenvector for your lambda. So, now you have two things here, right. For lambda you have one, you have a eigenvector V1 and second what you have is a vector which is linearly independent to V1 and this is a generalized eigenvector. Now, think of that. Now, you have taken up the generalized eigenvector, you start looking out for what is your P. So, you start looking into P. Of course, there is again I would like to say that if you look into the general case, there is a theory behind why you should take V2 in this particular form, right, but we are not getting into that particular theory. So, we are not getting into Jordan theory at all. I am just trying to explain that this holds true. Your V2 here that you get here will be linearly independent to V1. So, we try to look into what is your P. So, your P again is a matrix with your columns as V1 and V2. So, this is non-singular. So, P is this and this is non-singular. So, definitely if I look into P inverse AP, right, this is basically my J and in that case my J would turn out to be a similar matrix to A, right. So, basically J is a similar matrix to J and what is your J in this particular case? If we try to compute J in this particular case, let us go back to looking into your J equal to E F G H, right, and then what you have here is you have these two equations, your A V1 happens to be equal to lambda times V1, right, which is basically going to give your G to be equal to 0 and your E to be equal to lambda, right. So, this gives your E as lambda and G as 0. On the other hand, what the second equation that you have here is A V2 happens to be equal to lambda times V2 plus V1. So, that gives your F to be equal to 1, right, and your H to be equal to lambda, right. So, again let us try to write this down again. So, suppose your J was E F G H, right. Then since your A P happens to be equal to P J, so you have A V1 which was your E V1 plus G V2, and now this A V1 happens to be equal to lambda times V1, right, and hence your E is equal to lambda and your G happens to be equal to 0. On the other hand, you have your A V2 to be equal to, right, this is F V1 plus H V2, but your A V2 here happens to be equal to lambda times V2 plus V1, and now if you try to compare, what you get here is F is equal to 1 and your H is equal to lambda. Your J in this particular case turns out to be equal to the form lambda 1 0 lambda. So, this is your J and this is a similar matrix to A in the case when A has just one eigenvalue, and we very well know that for similar matrices the eigenvalues will be the same and the dimension of the eigenspace will also be the same. Of course, eigenvectors could be different, but the dimension of eigenspace would be the same. So, we have that in this particular case, that means we are looking into the second case when we had real, we are looking into the case when your eigenvalues are real and when your eigenvalues are equal, right, such that the dimension of the eigenspace is 1, right. Your matrix is similar to a matrix of the form lambda 1 0 lambda. So, this is basically again Jordan form. We now look into the third case. The third case comes out to be, why should we assume lambda 1 and lambda 2 to be real? There could be something else also. So, we look into the case when lambda 1 and lambda 2 are not real. Definitely, if they are not real, they will be complex. So, we have lambda 1 equal to so your lambda 1 is equal to say alpha plus I times beta. This is a complex eigenvalue since lambda 1 is one of the eigenvalues, right. So, this is one eigenvalue and we very well know that when we are looking into eigenvalues, right, and especially when we are looking into complex eigenvalues, they always occur in pairs. So, the complex conjugate will also be an eigenvalue here. So, this is also an eigenvalue. Now, we have two eigenvalues here. So, let us take a corresponding eigenvector. Now, think of that, our matrix is real, right, our eigenvalue is complex. So, when we are talking of a complex eigenvalue, we know that the complex eigenvalue will have two components, it will have a real component and an imaginary component. So, if we are trying to look into the eigenvector here, the eigenvector also will have a real component and an imaginary component. So, here let V1 plus this be the eigenvector corresponding to lambda 1. So, now we have an eigenvector corresponding to lambda 1. So, let us try to see the equation here. A v is equal to lambda 1 times v, which gives me that A of v 1 plus I v 2 is lambda 1, but my lambda 1 happens to be alpha plus I beta, and this is my v 1 plus I v 2. So, that gives me what is your A v 1. So, your A v 1 turns out to be equal to alpha times v 1, right, minus beta times v 2, and your A v 2 turns out to be equal to alpha times v 1, sorry, you are looking into A v 2. So, that turns out to be beta times v 1 plus alpha times v 2. So, trying to take this part, your A v 1 and A v 2, and we know that A v 1 and A v 2 gives you the column of the similar matrix to A, right. So, that gives you the column of the similar matrix to A, and hence in this case, so again we let our P equal to v 1 v 2, sorry, this is a matrix. So, P is a vector, right. P is basically a matrix of columns v 1 and v 2. We know that in that case v 1, this P is non-singular, and what we know here is that P inverse A times P will be equal to J, and what is your J in this particular case? Right, we are just comparing that here, right. Your J will turn out to be alpha minus beta, beta and alpha. We have the Jordan form. If you have a complex, if you have at least one, because once you have one eigenvalue as a complex, basically the second one will also be a complex, it will be a complex conjugate. So, if your eigenvalues are complex in case of 2 cross 2 matrix, right, your Jordan form turns out to be of the form alpha beta minus beta alpha, and this is one of the forms here which we can look into. Now, why did we do all these things? We wanted to look into computing AN. So, we are interested in finding the orbit. So, we did all this. So, this is basically the proof of the theorem. We did all this to compute AN. So, what is my A here? If I look into the fact here is that A can be written as P J P inverse, right, where J we can think of to be our Jordan form. So, if you look into A is P J P inverse, then your A to the power n, what is that equal to? So, this is P J to the power n and P inverse. So, that means now in order to compute A to the power n, right, it is enough to compute J to the power n, and it is easier to compute J to the power n because J is in a very simple form, right. You are writing J in a very simple form. So, it is easier to compute what is your J to the power n. So, what we have here is A to the power n is P J to the power n P inverse, and hence we need to compute A to the power n. So, for computing A to the power n, the reason here is that if I look into the orbit, right. So, basically I am looking into the system R square and L, right. So, for R square for the system R square L, right, and any V belonging to R square, the orbit of V, looking into the orbit of V, right. So, the orbit of V is nothing but V, A V, A square V and so on, which turns out to be nothing but V, P J P inverse V, P J P inverse V right. Then I have P j square, P inverse V and so on. So, all we know is now about orbits, right. So, we need not look into our matrix A at all. Once we know what are the eigenvalues, eigenvectors of, we just need to find out what are eigenvalues and eigenvectors or generalized eigenvectors of A. It is enough to compute our J, compute our P, compute our P inverse, right, and all we can do is now we can find out the orbit of V by looking into this structure. Ideally, this reduces, this still does not solve our problem. This now reduces to computing j to the power n, right. So, this reduces to computing and now when we try to compute this for j to the power n, right, it is now similar. What happens when j, so let us look into this, the fresh page. So, what happens if your j happens to be equal to lambda 1 0 0 lambda 2? What happens in that case? What is your j to the power n? This is a diagonal matrix, right. So, again if I look into this part, your j to the power n would just turn out to be lambda 1 to the power n 0 0 lambda 2 to the power n. So, computing this is very easy in case j happens to be lambda 1 0 0 lambda 2. What happens now if your j is of the form lambda 1 0 lambda? What happens in that case? What is your j to the power n here? Yeah, try to see what is your j square, exactly. So, your j to the power n turns out to be lambda to the power n lambda 0 and lambda to the power n. Sorry, this would be lambda to the power n minus 1 here, right. So, j to the power n turns out to be lambda to the power n times lambda to the power n minus 1 0 lambda to the power n. Now, this is quite interesting fact here. What happens when your j happens to be of the form alpha beta and minus beta alpha? What happens in that case? So, this is slightly tricky, but we can think of this looks quite similar here. So, what we try here is that we note that your lambda 1, I am looking into mod lambda 1 square. What is mod lambda 1 square? That would turn out to be alpha square plus beta square. Lambda 1 was your eigenvalue, right, it is a complex number. So, looking into the magnitude of the complex number, so that was your alpha square plus beta square. Now, what we do here is we put some trick here, we take our omega to be equal to tan inverse beta by alpha, and in that case what we have here is we have our cos omega to be equal to alpha by mod of lambda 1 and sin of omega to be equal to beta by mod of lambda 1. We definitely know that cos square omega plus sin square omega should be equal to 1, right. So, what we get here is that cos omega is alpha by mod lambda 1 and sin omega happens to be beta by mod lambda 1. That gives us the value of alpha and beta. So, in that case now I am looking into this matrix alpha beta minus beta alpha, right. This turns out to be, now I am looking at this into the form of cos and sin of omega. So, this turns out to be, first of all I have here is mod of lambda 1 times cos omega sin omega, right, minus sin omega and cos omega. Now, it is very clear what would be our nth power of this, right. So, this is our matrix J. I am writing my matrix J in this particular form, it is easier to compute what is j to the power n now. So, j to the power n lambda 1 to the power n I can understand. So, this turns out to be cos n omega sin n omega, right, minus sin n omega and cos n omega. So, your j is put up in a very simple form, and that makes it easier to compute what is your j to the power n. You already know how to compute your p and p inverse. So, what happens here is now you can compute your orbit for any given v, right, you can compute your orbit. So, I am today not going to leave you as it is, I am at least going to give you some homework today. So, I want you to solve this particular example. So, find the orbit of 1, so now I am taking this to be my unit vector v equal to say 1 0 under the linear transformation. So, my linear transformation is A times u equal L times u equal to A times u. So, this is my linear transformation, and we are looking into the case when A can be given in form of 2 3 minus 3 2. A is 2 3 minus 3 2. Does it ring a bell, right? How do you compute that now? You can try something with tan inverse 3 by 2. Now, I am looking into the second case here. Your A happens to be equal to minus 4 9 minus 4 8. How do you compute this particular kind of A? What is the eigenvalue here? 2. So, the dimension of eigenspace turns out to be equal to 1. So, now you know what is the similar to, right. All you need to find out is the generalized eigenvector and compute this part, right. So, computing orbits of linear system, right, is basically looking into the Jordan form and trying to compute the orbits corresponding to that, right. I hope this is clear to you. So, today we stop here. We will look into more things, details of the dynamics in the next class.